Hello again, shiny people. Today we're going to talk about mastering / the mastering chain. But first, what is mastering? Now, I feel that it carries with it this giant question mark where no one can explain what mastering is, right? And it's almost treated the same as like mythos. Well, that's due in part by everybody having widely different answers to what the topic is. But enough's enough, and we're gonna cut the crap now, all right?
If that's too cryptic, let's get literal.
A mastering engineer's job is to listen to the material as objectively as possible. That's what we're trying to do. We are data collectors, and we respond to that data by listening to the music and making moves accordingly. Now, what we aren't doing is casting this inexplicable voodoo magic to, quote, save your mix. No. What we are doing is in fact extremely explainable and more times than not, really simple. So before I punish you with any more of that, let's break things up with some examples, huh? Let's go up here. Okay, so let's go up in here. And on topic of objectivity, here is a mix.
Tell me exactly what you need to keep you breathing, and I'll do my best to see that you receive it.
Okay, so this is true for anything you are mixing. I don't care if it's pop, folk, metal, hip hop, throat singing, anything. The most paramount thing is that we understand the artist's intention. So now, this artist here, the intention was to sound huge and enormous, right? But objectively, this mix is lacking an unbelievable amount of low-end content. So, enormousness not achieved, mission failed. So now to take this to Mastertown, and after considering the artist's intention with their mix, what we have to do now is make sure this will translate super well on every single source. I don't care if it's a cell phone speaker, laptop, Bluetooth, or an awesome set of stereo speakers like we have here. Sure, that's all well and good. We have to get it to translate well, but how do we do that? As is with every mix, the answer to that question is going to be different basically every time. But what isn't going to be too different is how we approach it. With one, EQ, so referring to the tonal shape of the mix, lows, mids, highs, resonances, brilliance, overtone building up, all that stuff. 2 will be the stereo field, so how wide or monophonic something will sound. 3, we're going to address the peaks and the dynamics of the mix. And the last thing to consider, this is going to be heavily weighted on the genre and again, the intention of the artist, is the final loudness. Now, all of this to say that maybe the mix doesn't need any of that. Maybe the mixer or the artist simply just absolutely crushed the mix, right? And maybe we just need to add a limiter at the end of the chain to make sure everything stays in check and nothing clips. That's also our job too. We have to, again, objectively listen and give it whatever it may or may not need. We might not need this huge, scary chain for mastering this track if it simply doesn't need that. And we need to train our ears to identify when is the right time to address something and when isn't. All right, so knowing what we know now, right? Let's go back over here and let's treat this. Okay, so first thing we know objectively right out of the gate, the lack of low-end content takes us out of enjoying this. So let's get that in there. I'm gonna pull up an instance of Fab, and let's just be broad with this. Let's just treat this with a big brush, and let's try something here. I mean, it's already a lot better. That might actually be all it needs. And anyway, let's go for another example here. Now, this track, quite the opposite. Now, this mix is objectively way too boomy, way too much low-end content, especially in the car. If you master this as such, it's going to be awful translating on other sources. It's going to be boom city, mud, muck, bleh, not clear at all. So how do we address it? Let's go back here. Quite the opposite move, actually. Maybe we can take a big old low-end shelf and do something like that. So first thing, addressed and way more balanced already. But as you can see here, let's make this a little bit bigger. Dynamics are completely opposite to the other one. It looks like it's already been, compared to this one anyway, it's already been potentially compressed and limited. So after addressing the low end issue, maybe this thing only really needs a limiter at the end. Let's see. So yeah, great loudness. It's very competitive RMS, and it's really well balanced. Maybe that is literally all it needs. And we as mastering engineers objectively have to make those decisions. So we have this mix here. This is from one of our awesome clients. His name is DELIN. Please go check out his music. He's incredible. He writes fantastic music. This song's called Interstate. And let's take a listen here. Knowing what we now know, let's go in for it here. We have dynamics that we have to consider, EQ, the stereo field, and its overall loudness. So let's take a listen to it and hear its tonal shapes here. Now, overall, it sounds really good. It's just missing a little bit of excitement up top, I think. So maybe we could just simply start with something like this. And yes, during mastering, tiny moves will take you very, very far. But yeah, let's go even further with that. I'm gonna pull up virtual mix rack here. Now this guy here is great because it's a parallel EQ. Let's add some sub content. It's subtle, but again, it's going to make a huge difference with everything else. Let's do the same thing here with Revival, which essentially is our exciter, right? The shimmer is our brilliance, and the thickness here is our sub-content. Let's get this virtual mix bus to give us some gentle saturation to already start taming these peaks here. And let's get it just to hit some red. Actually, a great trick with this is to really drive it and to listen to what it's doing, distort the piss out of what you're working on, and then back it off to where you can't hear it. Rad, I'd say that's pretty healthy. So next in the chain, we're gonna address some of these dynamics again, but with parallel compression. Here I'm using FabFilter Multiband. It's great, I love it. So in this, you can separate the sub. The low mids. Mids. And the highs. So we could simply just treat this as an EQ too, but if we go over here, and again, we're working with really transparent ratios here, like not even a 2-to-1 ratio. Same with all of these. And so, yeah, if we want to just simply knock back all of these, and then we can even drive this mix super far down. Cool. So now, next in the chain, I have the Kush Audio UBK1. I absolutely love this thing. It's one of my favorite invisible, gentle saturations. So again, we're going to shave off some of these peaks here. Let's go to a loud section. And again, I'm going to drive this really hard and then back off when I start hearing what this thing is actually doing. See here in the meters that the peaks have essentially been halted and lobbed off, right? So we're going on to distortion town at this point. Let's back off. Okay, it's a lot healthier. Let's back off here. Rad. Okay, I'm gonna go for good old Soothe 2. Now, a lot of folks like Soothe to correct and soften the upper mid content, or where it gets really whistly, essentially as a de-esser. But I'm a huge fan of using Soothe in the exact opposite region. So especially vocalists' fundamentals or muck that builds up with guitars, I really like to take care of low mid overtone buildups. That's schmeary business there. You know, there's real magic in the mids, and dynamically attenuating the low muck that might mask those mids does wonders for clarity, I'm telling you. Okay, cool. So everything's sounding really good. The stereo field's great. EQ, dynamics are a lot more tamed than where we started. Now, I want to add in maybe some low end, right? But I want to put something that's going to give us a little bit more richness and not just be a clean boost in the low end. Something to give us a little bit of more rich overtones, right? So I'm going to pull up an instance of this Pultec. I love this plugin so much. Now, if I bypass this and then pull up a test tone generator, let's see. We're going to pull up 100 Hertz simple sine wave test tone. I'll show you exactly what's going on there. So right here, see, we have the fundamental and it's super clean above that. Let's bypass this. Super clean, no other harmonic content. So now, just simply having this Pultec style plugin on, it's already adding a little bit of harmonic content to our signal. And if we drive 100 Hertz, Check that out. We're getting some upper harmonic content, some quote unquote richness to the thing. So just literally having that in there is going to give us more harmonics, give us more richness. And what we saw there on FabFilter was only one fundamental. Well, there's infinite amount of overtones and frequencies in a mix. So putting this on is going to give us upper content all over the frequency spectrum. It's going to be really nice. Let's try it.
Back and forth upon the interstate. It reminds us that I contemplate it in a state. And when you think of every single effort you made, you realize the fruits of labor, eat the berries you save. It's just the memories you made. It's just
I dig it. And this is what everyone's talking about when they say there's magic in outboard gear or quote unquote color. Well, something like FabFilter that is ultra clean doesn't give us richness like driving a preamp channel will. Well, if you have an outboard EQ or something, it might be going through a bunch of components and op amps, which is going to drive the source signal too, right? Lastly, in the chain here, I have this here, which is a mastering compressor, but I just really love this plugin for its soft clip circuit here. So let's turn that out.
back and forth upon the interstate. It reminds us that I contemplate it in a state. And when you think of every
Just want to kiss this soft clip light.
back and forth upon the interstate. It reminds us that I contemplate it in a state. And when you think of every single effort you made.
Mwah! Kissing. All right, so now loudness. This is to be competitive. The intention here is to, you know, sound pretty big, and say if this is on a playlist on a streaming service, a lot of people unfortunately want to be somewhat part of the loudness war, where like if they're listening to a huge pop song and then their track comes on next, they don't want this 14 dB cut in loudness to where they have to go and reach the stereo. And then the very next song is back to being super loud, and all of a sudden it's scary. It's like, oh my God, what the hell happened? So I really like a happy medium. I go for RMS level 9, -9 or -10. So in achieving that, now we can go and instantiate our first limiter. Here we go. Now, the objective here with the very first one, again, is we're just going to kiss the top of 0.
Back and forth upon the interstate. It reminds us that I contemplate it in a state. And when you think of every single effort you made, you realize the fruits of labor, eat the berries you save. It's just the memories you made. It's just
Also very important too, I didn't mention this, I'm usually measuring the loudest section of the mix. Chorus or maybe an outro or something. It's because I want to limit the loudest already existing section to preserve lower dynamics that may exist in the song. All right, so we're gonna check this part that I was just at here. We're gonna go to the outro too, which looks like it might be a little heftier as well. Let's go up here. Okay, we're just kissing 0. Now, I want to let you in on a really not so secret about limiting and loudness at the end of the chain. Think of this exactly the same way a woodworker would send a beautiful piece of timber through a planer, right? The intention there isn't to lob off a whole inch worth of the wood in one pass. No, you would completely destroy your wood. There goes your project. The idea is to send the wood through the planer and just shave off a tiny, tiny bit, get the piece of wood, send it back through the planer, a tiny, tiny piece at a time. Each time you send the piece of wood through, it's a tiny, tiny, tiny bit smaller, small increments. It's the exact same thing with your mix. Your gorgeous, beautiful mix that you worked so hard for. You wouldn't just put one limiter on the thing, lob off 8 dB every time a transient's hitting, and expect it to sound good. No, you destroy your mix. So we don't want to do that. We're going to kiss the little peaks here and there, tame them. Then we're going to send it through another one. This way, the limiter never makes its way down to the meat of your song, and it's only chopping off the tall peaks of death here and there, right? So let's instantiate another limiter here. And this one's going to work a little harder. Now you see this is happening basically only where snare drum and kick drum are happening. And that's good because those are our peaks. Those are our big old transients. Like see this big guy here? That's probably a snare, kicks, all that stuff. So it's basically just going to work on those and help tame all of this lovely dynamic content. Now in Cubase, we have the peak meter, which is essentially useless for measuring loudness. But the blue line here, the one that's dancing much slower, is the average read, the RMS measure. So we're looking at around -9, -10 RMS for the loudest section of the song. And for me, I love that. That's loudness achieved. It's a little competitive, but it's not huge and competing in the loudness war like -5 or -6 will. I'm going to show you the difference in how distorted and disgusting that'll sound. Distorted and legitimately offensive. Not a fan. So we've reached that loudness. I'd say we got a pretty healthy master on our hands. Now we can do a fun, cheeky little before and after, but we all know that louder always sounds better to our ears. So here's what we'll do. We'll record a snippet of it and then level match it. Sounds fun. Let's go over here. I have a reference track here, which is going to its own separate output. Let's tell its input to be our stereo out. Let's record a little snippet of it.
When we rise up just to sit in our cars and travel back and forth upon the interstate, it reminds us how to contemplate it in a state. And when you think of every single effort you made, you realize the fruits of labor, eat the berries you save. It's just the memories you made. It's just you wake up and think.
Rad, cool. Now, let's take this track down quite a bit. Let's just try, I don't know, -10 dB or so. And now we're gonna bypass our entire master chain. And let's see what we have a before and after. Oopsie.
When we rise up just to sit in our cars and travel back and forth upon the interstate, it reminds us how to contemplate it in a state. And when you
Let's go a little bit more than 10 dB.
when we rise up just to sit in our cars and travel back and forth upon the interstate, it reminds us how to contemplate it in a state. And when you think of
Okay, it's a little bit more level matched.
when we rise up just to sit in our cars and travel back and forth upon the interstate, it reminds us how to contemplate it in a state. And when you when we rise up just to sit in our cars and travel back and forth upon the interstate, it reminds us how to contemplate it in a state. And when you
So yeah, right away, it's already like way less mucky and schmeary. Like in the original mix, I mainly hear this area being very, very different and cloudy.
when we rise up just to sit in our cars and travel back and forth upon the interstate, it reminds us how to contemplate it in a state. And when you think of every single effort you made, you realize
I'm just hearing some schmeariness, and then adding all that brilliance, top end, low end, is making more of a smiley face curve, and that's great. It's really pleasing.
when we rise up just to sit in our cars and travel back and forth upon the interstate, it reminds us how to contemplate it in a state. And when you think of every single effort you made, you realize the fruits of labor, eat the berries you save. It's just the memories you made. It's just
Thing cooks, I'd say. I'd say it's ready to go. Let's upload this shit. Thanks so much for hanging out. As always, if you have any topics you'd like me to cover, drop us a line, hit us up. Would love that so much. Bye, Shinies.